So what does invoke mean when you look at this one statement? And what invoke means is that you're calling it. You're basically running that method. You're executing the code that's in that method. That's what invoke means. So anytime you run a method on an object, there's this hidden parameter, which is the object itself. So here's our deposit method. We're passing in that amount like I was talking about. And so you take that amount and you just add it to the balance and then overwrite the balance with the new balance. You just add that amount to the balance and then assign that value back into balance. It's weird that balance is on both sides of that equation. So in the call, when you run a method, that's called a call or invoke a method. You say, well, I have this bank account called Mom Savings. Now, if that were my family, Mom never has any savings. She just spends all the money she has. I kind of do too. But say Mom Savings, we want to deposit $500 because we're going to Hawaii. We actually are going to Hawaii. We got to save up our money for our trip to Hawaii. We're going to go in August. Hopefully all the COVID restrictions will be up there. I'm going to the Disney property in Hawaii. Anybody been there? Anybody? It's called Ilani. Texas, I might. Yeah, that's true. I have family in Texas. Oh, geez, Texas. Yeah, I used to live in Colorado, and Coloradans and Texans don't get along very well. So we make fun of Texans a lot. So the implicit parameter is Mom Savings, and the explicit parameter is 500. So that's implicit. If you actually look at the deposit method here, notice that there's no parameter that says, well, which bank account are you talking about? Because you don't have to say that. You say that in the call. This is the one, Mom Savings. This is the one I want to deposit this money into. But if you look at it from the deposit point of view, notice that that's not there. That's because it's implicit. It's not there. It's invisible. Okay, it's implied. When you refer to an instance variable inside of a method, it means that the instance variable, of the implicit parameter. Yes, question. Kind of like that. What you can think of it is that you're adding, there's an extra parameter in here that you can't see, okay? And it's this pointer to this object. It's actually, that's what it's called, is this, okay? It's funny that say, well, what is this? Well, it is this object, not that object over there, but this one. Well, which one is this one? It's Mom Savings. So you would say, in here, this is actually passing in Mom Saving in here, saying there's an extra one of the parameters in here, and we use that, and we'll see that in a second. Let me show you the next slide. Okay, so this reference denotes the implicit parameter. Okay, so if you need to refer to it, and sometimes you do explicitly, you use the word this. It's a keyword. It's a reserved word in the language. Say for this object, this means this object. Some languages call it me. Okay, they personify it, so they have me, this. There's a couple others I can't remember. So even though it says this, sorry, it really means this, okay? Because you're saying, I just don't want any balance. I want to get the balance for this object, the one Mom Savings that was in the call. Okay? So you kind of have to imagine in your head this, if you have an instance variable, a variable that belongs to an object, there's this implied this anytime you talk about it. Now, notice amount is a parameter. It's not implicit parameter. It's coming in as part of the call of the method. So that doesn't have this on it. But anything inside the object, you can just think, hey, there's a this there. Just imagine it there, and that will help you understand. How do you talk about this? It's like that one Monty Python skit where they say the word it's. You know, the knights who say me, if you say the word it's, they somehow get hurt by that. So they start trying to say sentences without the word it's. Well, I'm trying to do that with this. How do you talk about this? I'm talking about, well, this. So that's what this means, this object. When you refer to an instance variable in a method, the compiler automatically applies it to the this reference. So see, it's happening behind the scenes. It's not something you have to type in. You can type it in. It doesn't confuse the compiler. It just says, well, you know, that's kind of unnecessary because I know that already. But if you want to put it in, you can, you know. So, but it's optional because the compiler already knows. It already knows this. So many jokes you can do with that. All right, so implicit parameters in this. So when you say mom savings, well, mom savings is pointing to this bank account. It has a balance of $1,000. But then when you're inside the method, mom savings, now it's not called that anymore. Or actually, you have makes a copy of that, makes a reference to it, and it calls it this. So you have your this pointer, which is implied or implicit, and then the amount that we want to add. So that's what happens in the call. So mom savings gets replaced with, well, this. Now, some programmers feel that manually inserting the this reference before every instance variable reference makes the code clearer. Like I said, the compiler really doesn't care if you put it in there or not. You could do this if you wanted to, right? But again, I'm thinking they're going to discourage that here in a second. Let's see. I can't remember what he says. I guess he doesn't say anything to the contrary. But if you really want to make it clear to yourself or to other people working on your program that this is not a local variable, it's not a parameter coming in, it's an instance variable, belongs to the object, then you can put the this keyword in front of it. Sometimes you have to. Say instead of initial balance, this parameter coming in was called balance. Well, we already have an instance variable called balance. So how do you tell the difference between them? Well, you say balance on this side without the this, and then this dot balance on this side. So you do that every once in a while. The method call without an implicit a method call without an implicit parameter is applied to the same object. For example, here we have a bank account class. Say you want to charge a monthly fee like banks like to do. My bank says if you don't have $1,000 in your checking account, we're going to charge you $8 a month. So there's $1,000 to keep locked up that you can't spend if you don't want to pay the $8 a month. Well, that's a monthly fee. And here, my bank is $8, but this bank is $10. I wouldn't go to this bank; too expensive. So they withdraw $10 from your account. It's just money that disappears. So I wouldn't go to this bank. So the implicit parameter of the withdraw method is the invisible implicit parameter of the monthly fee method. So withdraw, see, doesn't have the keyword this in front of it. So the implicit parameter that's here gets passed in into this this call to withdraw. Sometimes you have methods that call other methods within the same class. This is an example of that. Yeah, it's like a nesting doll, just like those. I don't know if they're Matrushka dolls. I think that's what they're called in Russian. I don't speak Russian, so I can say you have a big nose in Russian. Not sure why I know that, but I can say that. It comes in handy when you meet big nose people over in Russia, but that's about it. Did Mr. V get any weirder? Okay, implicit parameter in this. You can use the this reference to make a method easier to read. So here, if you wanted to make it really clear, you're talking about this object that was implicitly passed into monthly fee. You can actually state it explicitly. Either way, the compiler is going to understand what you mean. You include this because of name collisions, or you just want to be really clear about how this is going to be affected. Let's do a couple of self-checks. These are actually working. This is new. Usually the self-checks I've had up to this point it gives you the answer right away. But here we don't have the answer, so we can think about it first. How many implicit and explicit parameters does the withdrawal method have in the bank account class? And what are their names and types? Well, we know withdraw. We have to know how much to withdraw, like the $10 they charge us for the monthly fee. So that's an explicit parameter, the amount to withdraw. But then there's an implicit parameter, the pointer to this object. So I would say there's this is an implicit parameter. The explicit parameter is the amount, I guess, that you're withdrawing. So one implicit parameter called this of type bank account, and one explicit parameter called amount of type double. Yeah. Okay. So I actually gets it right. A lot of times I sometimes miss these. I'm the teacher. I'm supposed to know this stuff. Here's a next self-check. In the deposit method, what is the meaning of this dot amount? Or if this expression has no meaning, why not? Well, you're depositing an amount. What is the meaning of this dot amount? I would say this dot amount, you're talking about this object's amount. Well, this dot amount, does that have meaning? Yeah, well, not really. Amount is a parameter being passed in. That's how much you're going to, and so you that doesn't belong to the object. That's just a bit of data coming in as a parameter. And so I'm thinking that, and I didn't look at this ahead of time, but I'm thinking the expression has no meaning because it's a parameter. It's not an instance variable. It doesn't belong to the object. It's not an illegal expression. This is of type bank account, and the bank account class has no variable named amount. It has a balance, but it doesn't have an amount. Amount is a parameter coming into the deposit method. Yeah, so that was a trick question. Hey, I got it right too. Wow. Here's another self-check. How many implicit and explicit parameters does the main method of the bank account tester class have? And what are they called? Oh, another trick question. Remember the bank account tester class, the main method is static. It means you don't have to have an instance of bank account tester to call it, which means there is no this. Okay. There's no this at all in the main method. It does have a parameter in it, basically an array of arguments, but there is no implicit parameter. There's only one explicit parameter. Let's see if that's what it says. Yeah, no implicit parameter. The main method is not invoked on an object, on any object. It doesn't have to have an object to be called. That's one explicit parameter called args. So if you remember, the main method signature is public static void main string args. That's how it's written out. Well, args is the arguments. Okay, so that's where we're going to stop today. Again, I wanted to do that just in one. Just think about that one thing today, because again, this is a kind of a challenge. But if you think of your objects as little people, I kind of do. Okay, they're little people. They can do stuff. Their methods are the things you can tell them what to do. They're self-aware. They know they exist. And they can refer to themselves. And the way that they refer to themselves, like for us humans, we use the word I. But these objects, they use the word this. So if you personify your little objects, it makes understanding object-oriented programming a little bit easier. Another thing you can think about in object-oriented programming is your methods are your verbs, and the object itself is a noun, like a bank account is a noun. Deposit is a verb. Withdraw is a verb. Okay, but bank account, mom's savings, dad's savings, mom's checking, those are all nouns. Okay, so you can think of it grammatically as well. So I tend to like to think of object as little people, and I also like to think of each object as a noun, and the methods you can call on that object, those are the verbs. Hopefully that makes it a little clearer. All right, let's stop the lecture then, and we're going to go back to see what we